Yo, how's it, fam? Usually, we try to jump on and just encourage you from God's word, to just give you a small little bit of teaching, just a couple minutes long, that will help you to walk in the way of Jesus. But this week, we're going to do something a little bit different. This week, we're going to talk about a principle or an idea that will help you study God's word on your own just a little bit easier. And that principle is context. If you've been around the church at all in your life, you've probably heard a pastor or a teacher or a small group leader talk about context. And context is so important that there's a phrase that theologians use that says context is king. Context rules over everything. But what exactly is context and why is it important? Well, let me start with the complicated definition and then we'll break it down a little bit. Context is the situation or setting that something happens within. I know, that's kind of like a school answer, right? But what is context really? Context is the backdrop or the setting that the story takes place in. Or when we talk about the Bible, context is the backdrop, the setting, the place and time where the book was written. And you might be wondering, well, why is that important? I'm so glad you asked. Context is important because it helps us to see the bigger picture and understand the bigger meaning of the book that we're reading. You see, the Bible is one huge story. It's all linked together. And it's the story of Jesus and the redemption of God's creation through the work of Jesus on the cross. And with the understanding that the whole Bible is really about Jesus and about the work that Jesus did on the cross, and with that big picture in mind, we can look at the specific times and places and people that the books were written to, and we can understand how those books relate to the story of Jesus. It can also help us in understanding why the writer is talking about certain issues. For instance, in the book of Galatians, Paul is writing to a group of churches in the region of Galatia. So he's not just writing to one church. And Paul is actually writing because some Jewish believers were trying to force non-Jewish believers to follow the law. And when we know and understand that that was the issue facing this church, we can more easily understand why Paul talks about the law so much. And it makes it easier for us to understand that Paul's talking about Jesus fulfilling the law. So as we understand that the entire context of the Bible is the story of Jesus to redeem God's creation, and that each individual book has a certain place and time and group of people that it was written to, we can just understand it that much more easily.